Hello, and welcome to your reproductive lesson. Today we're going to talk about the male and female reproductive systems. So the reproductive system is really in slumber until puberty, meaning that it isn't fully functional when you're born, unlike all of your other systems. And it's really important to understand the term gonads. Gonads are interchangeable between male and female, and all it means is these are the primary sex organs. So the gonads for the ovaries are going to be the female gonads, and the testes are going to be the male gonads. Now, each of these produce what we call gametes or sex cells. For males, it's going to be sperm, and for females, it's going to be the ova or the egg. And obviously, the main function of the reproductive system is to produce offspring. So it's really important to understand how egg and sperm form. And they form through what's called meiosis. Now, if you remember back in biology, you have mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis is going to be for all your body cells, so skin cells, liver cells, just your basic body cells. Meiosis is for just your gametes. So when we look at sperm development, it's called primary spermatocytes. This is basically the cell type that is going to produce sperm through meiosis. So these are kind of the cells that are destined to become sperm. And once they're formed, they're going to be referred to as spermatids. And it's really important to also remember that spermatids and eggs are only going to have 23 chromosomes, which means it's only half of a regular cell, because once sperm and egg unite, then you're going to have 23 pairs of chromosome, one from mom and one from dad. And spermatogenesis is really the last step in sperm production. So the spermatid is going to now be able to have all three pieces, including the tail, which is going to allow it to swim out of the male reproductive system into the female reproductive system. Oogenesis is egg production. Oogonia are going to be your female stem cells, so just like the spermatocytes is going to be the cell type for sperm, oogonia is going to be your stem cells that are going to create your primary oocytes. So oocytes are going to be your egg. So by the time a female is born, there is no oogonia left. They are actually born with how many eggs they're going to have their entire life. These primary oocytes, which are the kind of original form of the egg, are going to divide into what we call a secondary oocyte, and then you're also going to have three polar bodies. It's really interesting because sperm, when they divide, they create 4 sperm. But since the oocyte or the egg is so large and it requires so many organelles, we actually only create 1 egg and then what we call 3 polar bodies, which are just kind of become part of the egg, but they're not actually an egg. So here is what a sperm looks like, a fully developed sperm. So after the spermatids mature, you're going to have a head, which is going to contain your nucleus, which is where your chromosomes are going to be. The mid piece is where we have the mitochondria. So this is where you're producing ATP now to power this tail, which can then swim towards the female reproductive system. Sperm are very simple. Literally all they have is some mitochondria to produce ATP to make the tail move, and then the DNA in the head. They don't have all those other organelles that are needed for a cell. Those are all stored in the egg. And this is what it looks like when we have oogenesis, so creating the egg. So what we have is we start out with the oogonia, which go into the primary oocyte. The primary oocyte, remember, is going to be when we're born now. And what happens is we go through meiosis and we create 4 structures down here, but only one of them is an actual ovum or egg. The rest are just polar bodies. they don't actually make an egg. And that's because we have to store a lot of cellular material in that one ovum. We simply don't have enough to create 4 ovums, just one. So the rest are polar bodies that don't really do anything. All right, so now we're going to get into the anatomy of the male reproductive system. So first we're going to talk about the testes. And the testes are going to be the major male sex hormone that's going to be able to produce sperm. And they're surrounded by a very tough fibrous connective tissue, and they hang on the outside of the body. And then the seminiferous tubules are structures within these testes, and this is where the sperm is actually formed. So if we look at this picture on the right, here's your testy here, but the seminiferous tubule, all these coiled tubes on the inside, is actually where the sperm is formed. Once the sperm is formed, the primary spermatids are formed, they're going to be emptied into the ready testes, which is right here. So once again, it's just a complex tube system. So there's your ready testes. And surrounding these seminiferous tubules and the ready testes are interstitial cells, which are going to be able to produce that hormone testosterone. Testosterone is very important for sperm maturation and development. So once the sperm enters the ready testes, it's then going to enter what we call the epididymis. The epididymis is a very, very highly coiled tube about 20 feet long. Just want you to think about that for a second. Right now, most of you are between, 5'2" and 6'2", depending on, if you're male or female in your height, 5'2" and 6'2". This is 20 feet long in the testes going all the way up. This is where the immature sperm are actually now going to mature. And it takes them 20 days to travel through this highly coiled tube. Once again, I want you to think about how kind of amazing that is. They have to travel through 20 feet of coiled tubes for 20 days while they're receiving their tail and they're maturing. And then once ejaculation needs to occur, we really have these epididymis coiled tubes start to contract. And if you see here, this is all the epididymis. It's just insane. Okay. Once the sperm have now pretty much matured, they're going to enter into what's called the vas deferens or the ductus deferens. Those are interchangeable. This is the tube that's going to eventually lead to the urethra. So we basically go up through the groin, and it actually arches over the urinary bladder. And then it's going to enter into what we call an ejaculatory duct, which goes through the prostate gland and eventually merging with the urethra. And the main function of this vas deferens is pretty much just being able to get the sperm from one place to another. It's just to propel that live sperm from the storage site, which is the epididymis, into the urethra. And it's just smooth muscle contractions that are pushing them forward. So here is a kind of just overview. Here was your testes down here, and your epididymis is all going to be in this area. And then you can see the vas deferens is going to run up and over the urinary bladder, where it's going to go through that kind of prostate gland. Whoop, there you go. And merge with the urethra right there. So the urethra is going to extend from the base of the urinary bladder to the tip of the penis, and this is where sperm is going to exit the body. The opening is going to be known as the external urethral orifice, and it's really important to understand that sperm and urine never mix. You actually have a sphincter muscle, which is just a round muscle, that's going to constrict when ejaculation occurs that prevents any urine and sperm from passing at the same time. So males do have a kind of function with this in how they don't mix together. Okay, so here we go. Here's where the urethra starts, and it's going down, and it will exit the body. Okay, there's a few glands we need to talk about. First is the seminal glands, or the seminal vesicles. These are going to be located at the base of the bladder, and this is what produces seminal fluid. So basically, this is going to just help nourish and activate the sperm as they're passing through into the vas deferens and into the urethra. And then your prostate gland is a donut-shaped gland the size of a peach pit. And once again, this is going to just kind of secrete some hormones and different substances that are going to activate sperm. And it's going to enter into the urethra through small ducts during ejaculation. So it's really important to understand that sperm is just your sperm, but semen is sperm and then all of these secretions that are coming from the seminal vesicles and the prostate. Your pH of sperm is going to be about 7.2 to 7.6, and the reason is because the vagina is very acidic. So we need to have this a little bit more basic to help combat that. In semen, we also have antibiotic chemicals and enzymes that are going to just once again help the sperm be successful in that female reproductive tract. So here we go. Here's just a big overview. Here's the seminal vesicles, or the seminal glands, right here, and then the prostate gland is going to be right below the urinary bladder. So both of these together are going to help create semen and create those substances that are going to mix with the sperm to help them mature, activate, and get ready to be successful in that female reproductive tract. All right, our external male genitalia is going to include two major organs, the scrotum and the penis. So your scrotum is just the sac that is going to hold the testes out of the body. And it's kind of important to understand why we have this. I mean, when we think about the female reproductive system, it's all internal, but with the male, a lot of it is external. So we have these testes surrounded by the scrotum, and it hangs outside that abdominal cavity because sperm are extremely, extremely, extremely picky, and they have to have a proper body temperature in order to be produced and stay alive. So they must have that kind of ideal temperature that is below what the male normal body temperature is. And then the penis is really just there to deliver sperm into the reproductive tract. It actually does have erectile tissue, which is a spongy tissue that fills with blood during sexual excitement, and this is what helps to create the erection so that the penis can penetrate into the female reproductive system. Testosterone. Testosterone we've talked about before in the endocrine system, but it's the most important product, one of the most important product of the testes, and really it's produced by the luteinizing hormone in the brain, and it causes those secondary sex characteristics to occur during puberty. So this is why we get body hair, this is why male voices are going to deepen, and this is also why we see kind of a little bit of a growth spurt and more skeletal muscle development when males go through puberty. Okay, so we know that we have to release follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, and this is going to help create testosterone, which helps with sperm production and your secondary sex characteristics, like the deepening of the voice and the body hair. All right, so that's going to do it for the male reproductive system. We'll pick back up in the second video with the female reproductive system.